Hello and welcome to our web talk, Europeans Head to the Polls and You. So we're going to be looking at what Europeans make of these elections and whether they'll be voting or not. Joining me are Thomas Panayotopoulos, and he is from Greece. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, hello.
And next to him is Anna Prokorna, and she's from the Czech Republic. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
Right. And we also have our mobile reporter in the field. Her name's Miriam, but she's in the field there if you see the little image next to Anna and Thomas. And then next to them is Professor Ludger Kühnhardt. And
Hello.
He's joining us from the Center of European Integration Studies. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
And then we also have Joseph Finn, who's joining us from Middlesbrough, England.
Hello.
Hello, Joseph. And finally, we want you guys to take part in this discussion. So we have our social media editor, Anne-Sophie Brendlin.
Hi there. Yeah, you can send us your tweets and comments on Facebook, on Google+, or on Twitter, and I will show the sign here if there's any comments from you guys, and then I can include them. So why don't you start right now and tell us if you're going to vote or not?
Exactly, and while you guys try to figure out whether you're voting or not and telling us that on Twitter, we're going to show you this video that our mobile reporter, Miriam Klausner, made. She went and asked the people in Bonn whether they'll be voting.
Yes, of course, because it's important to use your voice, especially when you're young and you want to change something in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to vote because it's important to go voting for the European network and to build up something like knowledge exchange for the students.
Of course I go to the election because, in my opinion, if you don't go voting, then you don't have a right to complain.
No, I won't vote because I'm from Spain, and I think that we have an horrible politicians, and I am very disagree with. I very disagree with this politician.
I already voted, and the reason is in other countries people are dying for their right to vote.
Yes, I'm going to vote, and I think it's very important because I want to be part of the decisions that are going to take in the European Union.
I'm from Bulgaria, and I don't want to vote because I know what's happening in Bulgaria. The people vote, and after the same people.
Yes, I decided to vote it because as citizen of Europe, I want to take part of the integration of Europe.
Right, so we heard what people in Bonn had to say about voting. It looks like most of them will be voting in these elections. But we had two young people who say they won't be voting. And there's one of them who's from Spain, and she say that she won't be voting. Spain and Greece have a lot in common in terms of the European economic crisis, Thomas. So maybe you could tell us whether you're voting or not. Because
I'll be definitely voting because for me it's important to show to everyone that if you're not participating in anything, even though you're disagreeing, you will never change anything. So it's important to vote, first of all. Secondly, I can understand that a lot of young people from these countries which are in the economic crisis in Europe, southern countries, Italy, Spain, Portugal, younger people are depressed because of high unemployment in these countries. I can understand that, but they should still go and vote if they want to change something.
Right, so you think, of course, the best way to protest is also by voting. What about young people from the Czech Republic, Anna? Is it similar? I mean, how do they feel about voting in the EU elections?
Well, I think that young people in Czech Republic, they are quite eager to vote. However, still only around 27 to 30% of the whole population of Czech Republic go and vote for the European election, which I still think is a very low turnout. So I would only suggest for everyone, not even young people, just to go and vote, because then people complain, and if they don't vote, they shouldn't really be complaining.
So you are I take it you're voting yourself?
Yes.
Great. Joseph, the UK was voting today. I mean, like yes. The Netherlands, they are the two first countries to be voting in these EU elections. Have you been out to vote yet?
Not yet. I'm going to go to vote after this discussion. And I'm really looking forward to voting because I've just turned 18 this year, so it'll be my first time that I can vote. But what I've noticed at my college is that nobody's talking about the European elections, so I can't see there being a big turnout in the European elections here.
Right. So why are you voting? I mean, it doesn't seem to be a big deal where you are. So why have you decided to vote?
Well, there's a party called UKIP, which are a Eurosceptic party, and they're getting a lot of support at the moment. But I'd like to stay in the European Union, so I want to use my vote to support a party who wants to stay in the EU too.
Right. Do you know anyone who's voting for UKIP?
Yes, I do. I do know some friends here.
Are they young people like yourself, or are they much older?
I think the majority would probably be older than me. But also that there will be some young people. The problem with UKIP is that we don't get a lot of information about the EU here, and UKIP have used a lot of campaigns that have used figures that are a bit misleading, and people have been misled by that.
All right. All right. Well, it seems we have a comment from social media, so maybe we'll just take that comment from Anne-Sophie now. Let's hear what people are saying.
Yeah, we actually have someone else who wants to vote for UKIP, and that created quite some backlash on our Google Plus discussion. I can show you guys. His name is Anthony Drake, and he says that he's definitely voting tomorrow. He can't wait. And he's saying that UKIP is going to get his vote, not just because of the EU, but all of their policies answer his concerns. We need to be out of this EU nonsense ASAP. And he keeps going, why? Because of, you know, speed limits and a lot of regulations. And then we have a ton of comments. It really created a lot of backlash, as you can see. And yeah, so there's actually quite some people out there who will vote for UKIP.
Right. Let's turn to Professor Kühnhardt. You've just heard the talk about UKIP, and it's not the only right-wing party in Europe that's been gaining popularity. There's also Front National in France. There's Geert Wilders' party in the Netherlands. I mean, why is it that we see a lot of support for these parties? And do you expect people to turn out in high numbers to vote for them in these countries?
Well, I think first of all we have to put all this into a context. On May 25, we have two elections in Europe. The election in the Ukraine takes place in the shadow of people running around with Kalashnikovs. In the EU, we have free and fair elections, which includes the right of people not to vote, and it includes the right of people to be critical about certain regulations. You mentioned speed limits, or even about the whole EU as such. This is an expression of the free and democratic system we live in, and I understand that most of those people who are labeled Eurosceptics these days, if at all, they have one thing in common. They all realize that Europe is getting serious, that European integration and interdependencies among our societies are getting serious, and they are afraid of losing their identity or even some national power. So in a way, this wave of Euroscepticism, in my view, is explicable, but I think it is not going to derail the European path of integration.
All right. Well, maybe let's just turn to Miriam and see what people in Bonn are saying. I mean, maybe, I don't know if there's support for such parties, but we could just turn to Miriam to see what people are saying, at least on the streets of Bonn.
Of course, not everyone in the park is talking about the European elections, but I bumped into a group of Erasmus students, and they were just discussing the biggest problems young people are facing in their countries. Unfortunately, they had to go to a lecture, so I've just to summarize what they told me. And I met two girls from France. They were saying there's no proper job in France, or they will certainly not find a proper job when they finish their studies. I met a girl from Greece. She was saying she doesn't see any future in Greece. She will not get a proper job there, and all her friends are looking for jobs abroad. And then there was a guy from Spain. He was pretty disappointed with the Spanish system. He says he is not able to finish his PhD in Spain because there are no university grants anymore. And from your discussion, they would like to know, or I'd like to know, are the problems that people were mentioning only specific to their countries?
Right. So, I mean, we have with us here 3 young people and one from the UK, and then, of course, Thomas, who's from Greece and Germany, and also Anna, who's from the Czech Republic. Maybe I'll start with Anna. Anna, are these problems similar to those of young people in the Czech Republic?
Yes, I think not to that much extent, but I think there are still some problems that young people in Czech Republic are facing, especially if they are studying humanities, like we are politics or anything. So that there is a really high unemployment, and I think people would like to change that, and they do complain about it and move abroad.
And what about, well, for Greece, I don't know how much contact you have with people in Greece. Thomas, maybe you could just tell us about what young people in Greece, your friends especially, may be saying.
Well, what your reporter just reported from the center of Bonn, where she met the Greek girl, is a bit the picture of the Greek youth today, and especially students. They don't see any opportunities in their countries. But this is something from friends from Greece, Italy, and Spain. I hear it. It's the idea that the only way is to get out of their countries and get to move somewhere else to find a job. So, and this has repercussions on their idea they have about the European Union, that the European Union is not seen by these persons as a place where you can have multiple possibilities, and but it's seen as a European Union where you only have opportunities outside of your country, which is a bit the truth at the moment in these countries. But I think this is the major problem the European Union should tackle if this young people should change their mind.
Right. Well, I mean, what about you, Joseph? I just want to know from you, because you are in a country that actually might want out of the EU.
Yes.
How are young people, how do they perceive the EU? Do they see it as a place where they can move for work, or do they just see it as a waste of money? I mean, your friends especially, people you have contact with.
Well, I think Miriam mentioned that in certain countries there are problems with funding for university. And a few years ago, the university fees were raised by quite a bit here in the UK. But I think a good thing from that is that we get a lot of grants to help poorer students go to university. So I don't think we have this idea that Europe can be somewhere where we could go and study, unless you were a language student, or maybe a student who was doing something specific like biochemistry or something that you would need to go abroad to enlarge your opportunities.
All right. Professor Kühnhardt, we just heard two rather more similar opinions from 2 young people, and then one that was fairly different from the UK. What kind of effect are such perceptions of the EU having on the voting patterns that we may see in these elections in these different countries?
Well, I think the basic effect of all of this is that people, no matter whether they go voting or not, no matter they vote mainstream parties or Eurosceptical parties, the overall effect is that all of us in Europe want to see a European Union that works, a European Union that takes people's concerns seriously, a European Union that translates the destiny and the vocation of this European Union to be a union of peace into sustainable economic growth and social stability following from the provision of new jobs for young people in particular.
All right. Well, we have a comment from social media, so we'll turn to Anne-Sophie and just if she could just let us know what people are saying on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, we heard a lot of Eurosceptical voices, but we're also getting some comments from people that actually really believe in the EU and also really believe in voting. Let me show you some of them. So one is Benjamin Becker from Germany, who's saying he already voted via mail because the sane can't stand silent and see extremists and propagandists tear up the EU. Someone referred to his post. His name is Willem from Holland, and he's saying voting is both a democratic obligation and a personal responsibility to influence your own future. And we have a third comment from someone from Germany who's saying yes, he wants to vote for federal Europe with a common language, and army, no NATO, and Russia somehow should be part of it. So these are the comments that we're getting from our users right now.
So we heard that. What about you, Professor? I have a rather short question to ask you. Have you been encouraging students to vote in these elections?
Yes, of course, and I feel encouraged by the direction of many of our students here at my institute. They are all eager to turn their educational background and professional experience into jobs that help to bring Europe forward. I think this is the overall spirit of a vast majority of young people. They want to contribute to the well-being of their respective societies, and in doing so, they contribute to the common good of Europe. These days we talk so much, but sometimes even too much, about Eurosceptics in our media. I'm not against discussing these phenomena, but we should keep in mind that the vast majority of Europeans who go out voting vote for the mainstream parties who are forming, for a good number of years they have been doing so, some sort of a grand coalition in these European institutions. Maybe some people find this boring. I understand very well. A grand coalition always produces a certain boredom, but it guarantees that Europe works, that the institutions work, and these working institutions must take the issues seriously, which we have been discussing here, youth unemployment in the first place. Otherwise, Europe is in danger to even increase the number of Eurosceptics in the years ahead.
Right. Maybe let's just have a little mini vote for our guests. Who is, if you feel positively about the EU and the future of the EU, please raise your arm. So, okay, we have, okay, the professor didn't seem so sure there.
Sure.
Maybe I'll pick one of the students. Maybe Anna, just tell us why you're positive.
I think now the young generations are actually realizing that Europe is important and to work together, even with the happenings in Ukraine. Europe needs to take one approach and work as one, I don't want to say coalition, as a union, to work together towards a better future. And I think, especially I would say, with my colleagues here at in my class, or even with my friends back home in Czech Republic, they realize that just to work together for a better future is the way to go.
All right. And Professor, you were hesitant, and so I just want you to tell us why you hesitated.
Well, no, because I thought you were only asking the young people to react to your question, and I thought I am not really any longer part of this generation, but I am this European public and have strong opinions about a good future of Europe. And want the European Union to succeed for all generations, because this is an intergenerational project. It is a community of values that brings us together after a century of warfare. And in light of all the challenges we see around us, in light of all the human rights violations around the world, in light also of the contributions of Europe to increase the level of social cohesion, I think the European project is worth continuing and doing so with a stronger democratic outlook. And this is what these elections are all about, to give Europe more of a face, to personalize and to politicize this process, which is not bureaucratic alone, but really helps us understanding the future path of our European society.
Let's turn back to Anne-Sophie and let's see what people have been saying on Twitter.
Yeah, we have one user who would like to vote, but she can't, and she wrote us the reason why when we asked her. Her name is Katie Burton. She's from the UK, and she hasn't been in the UK for more than 15 years because she's working in Austria. So she's saying no vote for me in the EU elections. She was disenfranchised in the UK, and it's too late for her to vote in Austria. And then in another post, she said that that's one of the reasons, the complex sign-up, that she would like to actually take on the German nationality, because that's how much she actually wants to vote.
Right. Well, we have Anna and Thomas, two people who are actually in Germany, and you have other foreign friends studying here, I believe. How many of them are not voting because of just how complicated it is?
I think generally there is a a big the whole subject about voting and about people of the European Union being abroad voting is very complex, and a lot get confused about what, how, and where, and if they could or not vote. We had a discussion before at lunchtime with a lot of people, and it was funny because everyone has had his opinion about who could vote and not. But yeah, there is a confusion, and I think this comes from the fact that the European elections are based in every country with the laws of every country, and I think a common European election law would be a good would go in the good direction to put aside this whole confusion and to show to the European people that that we are truly a union, and they can easily vote even abroad.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's obviously the problem with the EU, because there's, 28 different countries now, 28 electoral systems that people have to deal with. And of course, for Europeans living in different European countries, that becomes very complicated. Maybe I have one final question, which I'd like all of you to answer. Imagine that you were elected into the EU Parliament. What's the one thing that you would change, the first thing that you would change in Europe? I will start with Joseph.
I would like to see more renewable energies used, because I think we need to take care of future generations, and there needs to be more investment in things like wind energy and sun energy for the future.
All right, and now let's turn to Professor Kühnhardt. What's the one thing that you would change?
Well, I would change the right to have the right to change something personally, because I believe Europe only works if we all work together, and not on the basis of an autocratic system as we see it developing in Russia these days. Europe depends on consensus among its citizens, and I would always stand there to give even opponents the right to speak their free mind.
All right, let's turn to Anna. What would you change?
Well, I do agree with Professor Kühnhardt, and also better transparency within some European institution would actually be quite helpful for the citizens, because many citizens, and I can say from the Czech Republic, don't know anything about the European institutions or what's going on and how do they make legislations or anything like that. So transparency and inform the citizens of the Union more.
Right. And Thomas, finally?
I would change a lot in the promotion of the European Union, because I think that a lot has been achieved since the beginning of this European idea, and it's still not well promoted. And this gives space for Eurosceptics and people who are misinformed to advance and to mislead people, because we should also know that the European Union is an idea which is very attractive for a lot of countries around Europe, who like, I don't know, Georgia, Serbia, and others, who would like to be part of this European idea. And I think that the promotion of the European idea should be something we should concentrate in the next year.
All right. Well, a few different ideas there, but let's see what you guys have been saying on social media. Anne-Sophie.
Yeah, one of our users. Okay, I heard this little backlash. So one of our users is actually saying that one thing that he would like to change are the massive amount of regulations that the EU has. And he wrote us and said he voted against the EU because of these regulations, because the EU is eigentlich unnötig, which in German means it's really not necessary. He says the EU was a good idea, but done as a chaos. The EU only costs time and money, and he really is against all these, quote, stupid regulations and the people who actually make them. So yeah, the regulations really seem to bother some of our users.
Right. So some people think that the EU is not as important, but I mean, obviously the best way for them to make their opinion known is perhaps to go out and vote. So we've come to the end of this Hangout, and I'd like to thank you, all of our guests, for joining us today. Thank you. And for the rest of you, you can obviously join our discussion on social media, because that will continue. Just remember to use the hashtag DWWebTalk. Otherwise, please visit our Europe special at dw.de/Europe2014.